All right, now, come on, somebody. Big Rich Brock. We're going to have a good time right here in downtown Cartersville, Georgia at Hammerhead Studios, the place to be. I'm having such a good time doing this podcast. I encourage you to let your people know, share it on your social media, let your Face World family know about it, and let's get the word out that we got good things. Listen, we're having fun. We're pretty much talking pretty positive most of the way through this thing and having a good time. So today, man, I want to talk to you. I've been on the road. I've been to Panama City, Florida, did some shows at Margaritaville, did an outdoor show there. And if you've ever been to outdoor comedy, it's a different beast, but it's a lot of fun. I've done a few of those shows. I've preached outdoors. I've done comedy outdoors. I'll take inside as my first option, but I love doing comedy and I love entertaining people. Also just got back from Nashville, did shows up there. Got some more things coming up, being Irwin, Tennessee, being Cartersville, Big Door Vineyards next month, Three Strands Winery in Dallas, Georgia, Vintage Wine Bar, Dallas, Georgia. You go to bigrichbrock.com and you can find out all that stuff you need to know and how to book me for your events. So, man, today I want to talk to you about something I talk about a lot in my shows. Growing up in the 1900s. Come on, somebody. You can be, when I say that, I laugh because people, it always gets a chuckle. And the way I originated that, and there's been a couple comics I've hired that have tried to steal that. And, I don't hire them anymore because they heard me so much. They started doing my comedy. But the way I came up with that was I was my middle son played travel basketball. If you've got kids and they do travel sports, you realize, man, that's 6 months out of the year sometimes. My oldest son was a baseball and football guy, played baseball up until his junior year and decided to focus just on quarterbacking. Was a quarterback from, gosh, I don't know, probably fourth grade, fifth grade on. Started playing football third grade. Then my middle son was all three sports, but fell in love with basketball. My youngest son played baseball, football, basketball, and then in high school focused on basketball and played 4 years. So we spent a lot of time in the car going back and forth. And I remember we were playing in a tournament with 5-star basketball, Chatsworth, Georgia, baby. Jason Smith, if you're listening, still coaching today. We were driving in the car and the kids were in the back seat and they'd had a good game. And I was talking to them about the game. And then I started talking about, I mentioned Larry Bird, who's my all-time favorite. I mentioned a couple other things about the game. And my middle son, I heard him tell his two buddies, he was in the middle. He was on the hump, if you're in the backseat of a car. He leaned over to him and he goes, "Hey, don't mind my dad. He grew up in the 1900s. And they all kind of chuckled. And then I busted out laughing because I thought that's pretty funny. So here I was, he was in 6th grade and, 20 years later, I'm writing comedy. And that came out of my mouth during a show one night. And people ask in comedy, do you practice everything you talk about? I rehearse, I go over bits, I go over material. I work enough and I headline most of the shows I do where I'm talking 45 minutes to an hour or 75 minutes a show. So things come to you, and there's nothing more fun as a comedian than something new flying out of your mouth. And man, they're all like, "Oh my gosh, that was great." You get the audience response, especially folks that have seen you before and maybe they've heard that bit, then you put a new twist on it and you take them to a whole new level and they enjoy it. But I talk a lot about growing up in the 1900s. I'm 58 years old. I was born in 1968 and I don't remember nothing about it because I was born in 68. But where I start remembering things, like I mentioned in one of our podcasts, I remember the first comedy show I went to. I look back and it was like 1975, 74. and it was to hear Jerry Clower. Law, pledge, pull up Jerry Clower. We got to always give honor to Jerry Clower when I mention his name. Show a photo. He's probably got on a red suit with a frilly shirt and 2 raccoons on each lapel. He is the man. He is the king of Southern storytelling in my life and to me. But we went and saw Jerry Clower in Chickamauga, Georgia, at the school auditorium. And man, he hadn't been doing comedy long because he did that show. And man, I remember it. I don't remember a lot about it, but there's a picture of me. And man, if you've got it, if you're one of those Chickamauga people listening to the podcast, that was a Lions Club event. There's a picture of me in my dad's lap and just sitting there mesmerized watching the stage. After my parents passed, I don't know where that photo got to, but it was at that show. So I went to that. A lot of things in the 1900s, man, they're so different, of course, than today. But I primarily grew up in the 70s. I was 12 years old in 1980. So the 80s is that's where I pull stuff from. But also the late 70s, because I was a little kid. And you think about it, and I talk about my shows like in the 1900s, you didn't have phones, you didn't have all the technology, emails, texts. We wrote notes. You wrote notes to each other, man. We tease now that cursive writing is going to be how all the old people take over the world because we can write secret messages to one another that kids can't read. But I can still write cursive. I don't do it often, but I can still do it. I type everything. And I know we don't even use the word type. That sounds old. I took a typing class. Come on, somebody. Typing 1 and typing 2. I sucked at both of them, but typing 1, Kelly Hedrick Haney, if you're watching, thank you. She used to turn in her worst timed typing and write my name on it. And that's how I passed because I was terrible at it. And then I got put in typing 2, and then I got kicked out of the class. That's a whole different episode. So the 1900s, man, growing up, the first video game, man, my kids love video games. Kids today, I mean, we got it all on our phone. You got these amazing graphics, man. It looks like the NBA players when you play today. It looks like you're in battle when you're playing Call of Duty or whatever you're playing. All that stuff's so lifelike. When I was a kid, the first video game I got for Christmas, 1976. Come on, somebody. PONG. PONG. Pull it up, pledge. People got to see what PONG's all about. Basically, PONG, and I looked it up. You could buy it at Sears. It started out at the Sears, and it was $99.95. That's a shitload of money in 1990 or 1976. Pardon my language, but I can't believe my mom and daddy paid $100 for me to get PONG. And we had PONG, and it was basically 2 knobs. And I'm an only child, so I had to play high life. Mom and daddy wasn't around, or I didn't have a friend over. And you sit there and you put it on your TV. You had to plug it in to your TV through the back with an adapter you had to buy. And my father refused to let me play PONG on the good TV. He said, that thing will ruin the TV. I had to play it on a portable black and white, which PONG was black and white anyway. It didn't matter. But it was about the size of a phone. That's what it felt like. And I'm over there playing Highlight. And then I'd have a friend over and play PONG. And then I got bored. And I started playing it. I got good at it, playing it like this. And do this number. And that came in handy later in life, but I'll leave that alone. And I love playing PONG. And it was fun. And that was all I had. And then a couple of years passed and Atari came out. My God, Atari made PONG. I mean, PONG who? I mean, it was gone. But Atari, the graphics were horrible compared to it's basically 2.0 PONG, if you know what I'm saying. I didn't have Atari. Well, Big Rich, what in the world did you play? Man, you can't hide money. I had an Intelevision. Come on, somebody. Pledge, you're going to have to pull up an Intelevision because that's like speaking in tongues for people today. An Intelevision, that thing, my God, that thing cost $249. I don't know how much overtime my poor father worked at the post office to buy that Intelevision, but that thing rocked. The graphics were great compared to Atari. You didn't have as many games, but all I cared about was the sports games anyway. But what's funny in the 1900s, if you're playing Intelevision football, it looks the same as baseball or basketball. The men, the figures are the same. It's just a different field. And when nobody else in your elementary school class has Intelevision and they come over to your house, you destroy everybody, man, because you know how to play it. They're learning. So you get a little cocky that you're really good at video games, but then you have to play Atari at their house. See, in television, instead of a joystick, you had a flat controller with a circle on it, and you controlled everything with your thumb. And it was basically like texting today. You moved everything with your thumb or your finger. And I love that Intelevision. Man, I played that thing if it rained, but it was different in the 1900s, man, because you'd go outside. And, and I know younger people are listening. Well, we go outside. Like my boys, my kids now, as I'm filming this, are 19, 23, and 29 or 28, almost 29. And they would play outside. They would play basketball, throw football, play wiffle ball, neighborhood, thing. We had a pool, we had a golf course, all that stuff. But a lot of stuff they did outside, we would have to go to. We would go to travel ball, little league, basketball, rec football. Today, I think it's even more. You drive to the park. You drive to find somewhere to find a playground. Little different. But when I was a kid in the 70s, you had a bicycle. I grew up in Chickamauga, Georgia. Shout out to Chicktown. Big Rich is hitting Chicktown. Coming to do a show there soon. Check it out on bigrichsprott.com. But I'm in Chicktown in the 1970s. I had a Schwinn 10-speed bicycle. Come on, somebody. And you can't hide money. Schwinn, listen, I know all you huffy people are ignoring me right now. You're a little bitter because most people had Huffies in Chickamauga. Huffies were okay, but man, I had a Huffy. And then for my birthday, when I turned 10, I got a Schwinn. Now, my mom and daddy weren't wealthy, but I'm an only child. So they didn't have to buy 3 Schwinns. They only had to buy 1. And man, I rode that Schwinn till I got a car. That was my bike. It was nice. They spent money on it. I took care of it. But I would ride in the summer. I would have to go to my mama's house in Mill Village, Chickamauga, Georgia. House still standing today. Friend of mine's daughter lives in it now. And I would go there. My father worked for the post office. Shout out to all our postal workers. I laugh because, my generation, the postal workers that I know are Cliff Clavin from Cheers and Newman from Seinfeld. And my father hated both of them. It's like, they give us a bad name, My dad worked at the post office from 21 years old till he retired. For 15 years of his career, my father walked 12.3 miles a day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6. You're like, Big Rich, how in the world do you remember that? I heard it every day of my childhood. I would get reminded all the time, hey, go help your mama. Why do I have to do it? Boy, I walked 12.3 miles a day. That was his line about anything that he wanted me to do because he knew I didn't do anything other than go to school and watch the Three Stooges and, ride my bike a little bit. But in the summertime, I would have to get up at 5:30 a.m. and ride with him to downtown Chickamauga. He would drop me off at Mill Village at my Mama Brock's. And my cousins, I'm the youngest in my family. I'm an only child, but I have 6 or 5 cousins, all still living, all still annoy the hell out of me because I was the baby, and I was the baby by 7 years. So you do the math and you can figure out they're old. I'm not. I'm still mid 50s in my mind, and I love them all. But they would tease me because I came around 7 years after the last grandkid, and my grandmother, my Mama Brock, she treated me like the prince, man, the king. I got my way when I was with her. I got anything I wanted, anytime I wanted it, because that was the grandparent. They spoil you. Parents have to train you, raise you, get you ready for society. Grandparents do what they want to do. Man, my dad's not the same man that raised he's my son's granddad. Totally different fella than who I grew up with. Man, you remember the Tooth Fairy? Come on, somebody. Come on now. Tooth Fairy. I got in the 1900s a quarter a tooth. A quarter. Man, one time I got a quarter and a note. It said, if you don't start flossing, I'm coming back for the quarter. I mean, that's Dixie Mafia Tooth Fairy right there. That's all I'm telling you. So my parents, when they had grandkids, my son spent the night over at their house. Lo and behold, man, I'm telling you, what I saw when my son, when he lost a tooth at Granddad and Nana's, it wasn't no quarter. They left him, the Tooth Fairy left him $20 for a bicuspid. $20. Big Rich, what did you do? I got 3 kids. I had to get braces for all 3 of them. We'd pay for one braces to be done. The next one got them put on the same month. Come on, somebody. For 14 years, I'm buying teeth or braces to get teeth to get straightened up. So I'm like, I'm done with that. So what'd you do? Well, they had a loose tooth. I sent them to Granddad's because I knew they were going to get $20 down there instead of a quarter. And then I said, give me that money. We're going to put this on y'all's braces. No, I'm teasing. I didn't. I only took $10 and I only took half like some people. So I just look and I get tickled because the 1900s living with my father, he treated, he's my dad. He's got to be more responsible. I was with my kids. I remember telling my father, you can't give my boys $20 for a tooth. My dad looked at me and he goes, hey, I'm their granddad. I can do what I want to. It's my money. And I'm like, why would you do that? He goes, because of their last name. I said, hey, I got the same last name. He goes, yeah, but it skips a generation. And I'm like, boy, he's telling the truth there. That's for sure. And I'm not a granddad yet. And you guys that are watching that are, I know, man, I'm going to be the worst. And God help me if I have a granddaughter. She probably won't walk till she's 5. We won't let her on the ground. It'll just be spoiling her, loving on her, all that stuff. Cause I got all boys. But growing up, man, riding that bike around town and looking for stuff to do. And in the 1900s, I played Little League, but then instead of waiting for the game that night, we would get the neighborhood kids together and we would go to the field and play a game. There'd be 8, 9, 15 of us, however many. We would figure it out and we would play games and we'd do that. Then we'd play football. Then we'd play basketball. Then we'd go to the pool. Then we'd find other things to do. And basically was told, don't come back inside until it's dark. When it starts getting dark, that means dinner's coming and you get home. And that's the way the summer was. It ain't like that anymore. You can't ride. You ride a bike on most streets in America, you might not make it home. It's a whole different world. So that's one of the things that I think about from the 1900s. We didn't play a lot of video games. I had them. I remember I had Mattel video games. I had football, basketball, baseball. All of them were the same freaking patterns, just different games, little dots that you did. Had a blast with them. Another toy, man, if you had this toy, you're old like me or older. Pledge, you're going to have to pull this one up, a Bobo paddle. Oh, yeah. Now, for you young bucks, see it right there? Piece of wood with an elastic and a little rubber ball on it. And you basically sit there and do this number. See how long you can keep it going. Here's the problem with that Bobo paddle. Eventually, you're going to break the elastic. And then it's not good for nothing. And it lays around. And then you do something stupid. And you're going to get a spanking. And the first thing my daddy would see would be that Bobo paddle. And that became his discipline of choice, you know. And I'm thinking, my God, I'm going to get a splinter, you know. I'm thinking, Jesus is Lord. This thing was a toy. Now is a punishment technique, you know. So I didn't want a Bobo paddle. I didn't ask for it. It was in my stocking. I think my daddy had the same experience I did. I think my pap bought him one for Christmas and then used it on him, and he's just passing the tradition on. 1900s, another toy, and I don't know if they're still around. Slinkies. If you got a slinky, man, I got a slinky. It was just metal wires, you know. Here's a problem. I get a slinky in my stocking at Christmas, and I live in a brick rancher. We got one step in the whole dang house. You can't do much slinking when you only got one step, man. You need at least 10 or 15 stairs and make it interesting. So that didn't last long. And I'm looking at the toys. If you put these toys, I laugh. If you put a slinky in front of my boys when they were kids, they'd thought, how dumb is that? I remember this toy, getting this one, and I don't even know what we call this pledge, but this was just a wooden, it was a piece of wood, like a cup. It had a red ball on it made out of wood and a string. And the object was to sit there and toss it and throw. If you can find it, pledge, show everybody. And you toss it up and just catch that ball. And man, once you did it, you're like, well, what the hell am I going to do with it now? Because that's all you can do with it. But that was something I got for Christmas. I told my boys about that, folks. And they're like, boy, that sounds boring. 15 minutes later, and this is back, 10 years ago, I saw my teenagers, and they were taking water bottles and flipping them, trying to make them land, and videoing themselves. Come on, somebody. And rejoicing and having a good time and thinking that was a lot of fun. So it's the same principle. You find something you're into, and then that's your thing. So 1900s, the toys I remember that I love the most, the best Christmas present I ever got was a go-kart. I mean, a gas-powered go-kart, a two-seater. And I got that thing when I was in first grade. Think about that. I wouldn't give a first grader no go-kart, but it's a different time, man. It's 1974. And I get this thing, and my daddy, I get it. I'm all excited. We go out in the yard, and he puts gasoline in it, cranks it like the lawnmower, and says, okay, have fun. I was gone, and I had to learn how to drive it on the spot, and I would run that thing, and praise be to Jesus of Nazareth that I'm alive today, because I'd get on the road. I would accidentally see cars coming. I mean, it's a different world back then. But man, that go-kart was the best one I ever had, by far. But as you get older, and you're talking about the 1900s, and we're talking about you don't want toys anymore. Then you start wanting, even back then, electronics. Man, the first job I ever had, and this is a whole different episode sometime, I worked at this place in Rock Spring, Georgia called Daytail. And basically my job in the summer was to do the work that illegal aliens refuse to do. They're like, I ain't doing it. Well, okay, we got this teenager bunch. They'll do it. And we did god-awful work down there, man. It was horrible work in the heat, nasty, all that stuff. But I still remember, I made $3.35 an hour. That was minimum wage. And in a week, I made, because I didn't have to pay taxes back then like I do now, I made $134 a week for the summer. And man, I took that money. First off, I saved some, and I went and bought me a VCR. Come on, somebody. Man, you couldn't buy a VCR just anywhere. I had to go to a TV and electronics store. And I bought this VCR, 500 plus bucks. You can go to Goodwill and they'll give you one probably if you just drive by and ask. I mean, those things ain't worth a nickel now. But I mean, you don't have to do the math there. I was 72 out of 106 at Gorley High School, but I know that's like a month's worth of work. And then I had no movies. Come on, somebody. We didn't have Blockbuster then. We didn't have all that stuff. So I'm like, I had to buy a movie. I bought my first movie. I know you want to know what it is. St. Elmo's Fire. No, that was my second one. Forgive me. Eddie and the Cruisers. That was my first one. Pledge, pull up Eddie and the Cruisers. Dog Side's coming up and nothing is real. Eddie and Cruisers, man, that's a serious show, man. They even brought Eddie Lives, Eddie Cruiser 2. But I bought Eddie and the Cruisers #1. And I watched that thing 150 times, man, because that's all I had. And then I got a job at a video store a few years later. Same VCR, but I worked at a video store back when that was a thing. Pre-Blockbuster. I worked at this place in St. Elmo, where the incline is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And lo and behold, you would get those videos in the 1990s or 1980s, late 80s. The store would get one movie of that, one tape of one movie. If it was a huge movie that year, we might buy 2 tops. That's it. Blockbuster came along, they'd have 40 of them and put the little man out of business. But man, I watched every movie that's ever came out from 1980 to about 88 because I was working around there and had that VCR. And not everybody had a VCR till the late 80s. But I bought my own. Another thing I spent my own money on in the 1900s. Come on, somebody. If you're my age, you'll remember this. 2 things. Number one, I bought a stereo system for my house, my room. Pledge, pull up one of those stereos from like 1985, 1983, something like that. Big old 2 glass doors you open up. You got that big old, I don't know what all that stuff was, but you had your record player, you had your cassettes, then later on CDs came out, equalizers, all that stuff. And man, my mom and daddy would go to the grocery store, and we lived in the subdivision then. I would take them speakers in the summer, raise up the windows, put them speakers in the windows, pointing outside, and I'd have a rock concert for everybody in my neighborhood until my mom and daddy were almost home because I knew the time it right to turn it down and get back to normal. But man, I loved that stereo. And another thing, I don't know if we buy now. I'll have to poll some 16 to 18-year-old fellas, but I remember I bought a car stereo because the one in my car sucked. So back in the day, in the 1900s, there'd be a store that was just selling car stereos. And it was always some dude that had, he had acid wash jeans and had hairspray in his hair. He shirt halfway unbuttoned, named Brad or something, and he's up there selling you car stereos. And man, you get that thing. My car stereo costs more than my car. Come on, somebody. But man, I was rocking when I was traveling. Because I don't know now, I guess it's the same in a sense, but in the 1900s, the only liberty I had was when I got my own car, man. When I turned 16 and I had a car, I was fortunate enough being an only child. They just had to buy one. And my first car, man, think about what yours was. My first car, they didn't even hardly make them back then. And this would have been 1984. I got a 1979 Pontiac Phoenix. Pledge, pull that up. 79 Pontiac Phoenix. Mine was silver. I called it the Silver Bullet after Coors beer, and that it went fast. And then I had a little accident that nobody knew about. I'd had a few adult beverages as a teenager, and I backed out of the school. Well, wait a minute. You were at school? Different story, different podcast. And I backed into something, and the emblem Phoenix broke off half of it, and it just said Fooey. So everybody called my car, my buddies called it the Fooey because of that. But I loved that car. I didn't care, man, it had mag wheels. That was cool. But it wasn't a pretty car, but I don't care. It's a car. I didn't need, all I wanted was freedom. my own identity, be able to put my music in. And listen, if in the 1900s, if you wanted to meet somebody of the opposite sex, you better have a car because you ain't going to meet them walking around the neighborhood. You ain't going to meet them. Hey, I went to school. We didn't have buses. Where are you going to meet them at? Car rider line waiting on your mama? No, that ain't going to work. You get your own car, then you cruise and you go. For people my age in the Chattanooga area, our place was Brainerd Road. Come on, somebody. Man, you cruise Brainerd Road, the mid 80s, you were somebody. If you didn't, you were probably living good for the Lord or doing something more important. But that place was packed. It's just people cruising, meeting each other, hollering out the windows, getting to know one another, passing phone numbers, calling. Oh, man. Think about this 1900s, calling a girl. Oh, good God, man. Whole different world. Now you Snapchat, you text. Man, you can get to third base and not even meet them now. It's crazy. Back in my day, you had one phone in the house. Freaking rotary phone. Come on, somebody. Pledge, pull up a rotary phone. We're working the pledge today. A rotary phone. Man, this thing, one of them deals. You had to, and you get their phone number, and God help you if they lived and the number was like 899, and it took forever because you'd run it and come back and forth. And then if you messed it up, you'd have to start over and do it all over again. So, man, I remember I got this girl's phone number and I called her house, and hardly ever, it's always the mama that answers. And you got to go through a screening process. And there's a special out now that Derek Strubes does called Nostalgic. He's got a great bit about this, and great comedian. And he talks about it. But in my world, and I'm a little bit older than him, so the different take on it. And this happened to me, man, when I was a teenager. My mom and daddy went out of town. See, I can tell this stuff now. Both my parents are in heaven and my kids are grown, so I can tell this stuff now. My mom and dad, man, when I was a senior in high school, my folks went on vacation without me. They went from Chickamauga, Georgia by car to go to Yellowstone Park, California. They were gone 2 weeks, 14 days and nights. And it was 2 weeks before I graduated high school. Do you remember what you did 2 weeks before you graduated? Nothing. You don't do nothing. You just hang out. All your work's done, or it was for me. And I taught my mom and dad and let me stay by myself because we lived in a neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody, and there was nosy neighbors, and they'd mind your business. And my grandparents were 2 miles away, my aunt and uncle a couple miles. So I said, I'll go by there if I need something. They can come by here. And my mom and dad said, we're going to let you, but we're going to call you. And listen, back then, no cell phones, everything was long distance. To call from California would cost you a fortune, man. I don't know how much it costs, but it wasn't cheap. And my daddy was frugal, man. In fact, the first night on the road, he called collect. If you don't know what that is, God help you, you're not old enough to understand. But he called collect, and instead of me saying yes, he would tell me just say okay. And that meant I was okay. And then he'd hang up because he didn't want to pay the $8 or $9 to make the phone call. My mama had enough of that. She goes, I got to talk to my only begotten son. I got to talk to my baby. So 2 days later, they started calling me, and they called me at 9 o'clock every night. They said, what time's good for you? I said, well, maybe 9 before I go to sleep. Okay. So I would go out to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I looked old enough. You had to be 21 to get into bars. But I say I looked old enough. Maybe they just didn't care back then. But I'm 17, 18. I was 18 years old, and I'm going to the nightclubs. And in Chattanooga, on a Tuesday, there's not many nightclubs open, and Wednesday and Thursday, it's the weekend. But I'm going every night, and I'm dancing, and I'm meeting people, and I'm enjoying life and all that. And then about 8:30, I'd run home, and I'd make that phone call. or I'd receive that phone call from my folks. And then I would, oh yeah, I'm good. I was just having Bible study over here. I'm tired. Y'all having fun? Yeah. Hang up. I'm back in the car driving 30 minutes back, 25 minutes Chattanooga, staying out to 1 or 2 in the morning, doing whatever. Oh, Big Rich, did you go to school? Of course I did, because I wanted to tell everybody what I was up to. You remember in the 1900s, you'd go to a rock concert, buy the T-shirt. The next day, what'd you wear to school? You wore the T-shirt, man, of whatever. You bought a T-shirt. I don't know if they do that anymore because they're so expensive, but I remember I'd buy a ticket and a T-shirt, and then you go to school the next day, and if you're wearing that T-shirt, you saw somebody else with it, you're like, okay, yeah, we know. We're cool. We know. We had an experience. I'm going to do maybe the next podcast, I'm going to talk about concerts that we've been to. But 1900s living, even as a teenager, man, I make that call. I go back to the clubs, and I'm about to graduate high school. I'm 18 years old. I got no direction whatsoever. And I'm up there and I'm dancing at the Brainerd Beach Club. Come on, somebody. They ain't got no beach in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but they had the Brainerd Beach Club. And if you know it, you know. And your town probably had something similar somewhere. Um, you know, Roscoe's Pool Hall, or the Electric Cowboy, or whatever. So I'm up there and I'm dancing with this grown woman, 25 years old. Come on, somebody. And I'm dancing with her, and I got bold and, a little liquid courage. And I was like, hey, you want to go home with me? She goes, sure. I said, my God. I took her home, and we walked in my house, and I forgot I'm an only child. We live in a rancher. When I opened the front door and we hit the hallway, there's 12 pictures of me from first grade to 12th grade. And I looked, and she kind of looked at them, and I thought, yeah, I'm pretty confident I got pictures of myself up on the wall here, But my senior picture, my senior class was sitting it came in through the Olin Mills. Come on, somebody, shout out Olin Mills. That thing had come in the mail, and I had it on the counter. And she walked in and looked at it, and she goes, I knew who you were when I met you. And I'm like, how'd you know that? She goes, I'm in town for graduation. My sister, you walked in homecoming. She was homecoming candidate. I've met you before. I didn't know. I just thought I was smooth, And lo and behold, I just moved her in. And she stayed over at the house for like a week while my folks were gone. And she just stayed there with me and, taught me a lot about life. And I'll leave it at that, since I'm doing a clean podcast, sort of. And next thing you know, I get a phone call, and it's not at 9:00. It's at 6:00. And my dad, he was a pretty smart guy. He said, hey, I just want to let you know we're headed home, and we're at Mont Eagle. Now, if you know Chattanooga, Mont Eagle is about 90 minutes from Chickamauga. Big Rich, what'd you do? Well, I did what any good Christian boy would do. I told my mama I'd see her in an hour and a half, and I looked over at that woman. I said, you got to get the hell out of my mom and daddy's house. And we cleaned up, and she got all her stuff together, and I went and showered, got the grown woman washed off of me, and lo and behold, I thought, I'm going to pull this off. And I heard the garage door come up at like 11 o'clock at night. I got in bed real quick, tiptoed in there like I was asleep. My mama opened up my bedroom door. She says, there he is, our only begotten son. He's going to graduate. I was graduating that night. And my daddy says, yeah, our graduate. And I was 72 academically. I'm 106. We'll talk about that another time. And my daddy says, that boy might be 72 over at Gordon Lee, but he's number one in this house. And I'm over there acting like I'm asleep. And I'm thinking, man, I pulled it off. Next morning, I wake up, I hear bacon frying. It was a Monday. It was like Memorial Day. We graduated that night. So they were off work because of vacation and the holiday. My mama's frying bacon, cooking a big breakfast. I come in there, I hug her from behind, just say, Mom, I love you. She's grinning ear to ear, turns around, then starts bawling, crying. I thought, it's okay. I know you miss me. And she said a quote that I bet I heard at least 100 times from the age of 16 to about 21 till I straightened up and got some sense. She said, Dear Jesus. And then she said my father's name. And then she says, get in here. And that would be her saying, Dear Jesus, my daddy's name, get in here. And my dad walks in. And he just looked at me just like disgusted. And he said, for God's sakes, go wash your face off and put a shirt on. So I go into the bathroom and I wash my face off. I look in the mirror and I got two big old hickeys on each side of my neck that I had no idea they were there. And my mama's in there squalling and crying and, oh, he's graduating and he's got these hickeys. And, oh, we never should have went on that trip. I told you we couldn't leave him at home. And then the phone rang. See, I got back to that rotary phone. The phone rang and my dad never answered the phone. And I'm sure if your dad didn't either, because my dad walked 12.3 miles that day. He wasn't answering the phone. That was me or my mother's deal. My mama's crying. She couldn't get it. I'm going for it. And my dad picked it up. He said, Brock residence. And I could hear this woman's voice. She said, is Richmond there? Because see, that's my given name. Back then, everybody called me Richie, but you don't tell a 25-year-old woman your name's Richie. You say Richmond. And she says, Richmond there? And my daddy says, yeah, he's right here. Could I speak to him? Sure. And I reached for the phone and started going out because those phones, we had one. This is before we got, more money and was able to get a phone for each room, We had one, but it had a cord on it that would stretch out to the yard. So I was headed to the front door and I was going to stretch it out to the front porch, shut the door, and talk to her. And my dad grabbed me by the collar. He says, you take this call right here. You ever tried to talk to a 25-year-old woman when you're a senior in high school and you got two hickeys on your neck and your daddy's the one handing you phone? And right before he handed it to me, he said this, and I quote, Dracula's on the phone for you. I got the phone. I was like, hello. You change your voice. Was that your dad? Yeah. Did he call me Dracula? Yeah. Oh, can I call you back in a few minutes? And she said, before you go, she says, I left something in your mom's bathroom and you need to find it before they do. And about that time, I heard my mama, dear Jesus, Lynn, get in here. She had found what she had left in there. So it was not a pleasant. What do you remember about graduation? Not a thing. I remember being hot because I had to wear a turtleneck on Memorial Day. Come on, somebody, dude, figure it out. And my mother was so upset with me. But fortunately for me and all you 1900s people, especially Gordon Lee, class of 86, shout out to you. As soon as I threw that hat up in the air, before it hit the ground, I was in the car headed to Daytona Beach, baby. Senior trip. Went on a senior trip with 16 of my buddies. Something I did before things got popular today. You couldn't listen. You know how you got a hotel room in the 1900s? You wrote a personal check. I called the Panama City, Florida, to the Beachcomber Hotel. I reserved 5 rooms in my name as an 18-year-old boy. Sent them a check to cover the deposit. And then I collected money from those 15 guys and paid for those rooms. And boys or men, if you're watching this podcast, you also paid for my room and my buddy David Powell's room because I took the money that y'all paid and charged you a little more so that you covered our room and you covered my adult beverages for the week, because that was shipping and handling in my world. That's what I'm saying. So 1900s living is a whole, it's so fun to talk about to me because it's just a different world. We're talking just 25, 30, 40 years ago, but so many things have changed. So I want to hear some of the stuff that you loved and that you enjoyed from the 1900s, from your teen years. Reach out to me, follow us on the podcast, come out to a show, be a part of Big Rich Brock Comedy. I'd love to come to your area. Reach out to me, give me some leads of places that are good comedy. It ain't got to be a comedy club. I love them, but we can do shows at wineries, breweries, civic clubs, do fundraisers for organizations, churches, uh, businesses. I do shows everywhere. I love doing comedy. I love bringing hope one laugh at a time. And man, I've had fun talking about the 1900s right here from downtown Cartersville, Georgia. Big Rich Brock, come on somebody. And I hope you have a great day.